Okay, I'd like to start the planning commission special meeting for Thursday, June 16th, 2022. It's now 6:32. Okay. Determination of quorum. Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Burke. Here. Mr. Kinney. And Mr. Kinney is excused tonight. Mr. Anderson. Here. Mr. Reyes.
Here.
Mrs. Elderkin.
Here.
Mr. Price is excused tonight. Vice Chair Kalunian.
Here.
Chairman Flynn is here. So we have a quorum for tonight. We also have a Zoom meeting tonight. It's a hybrid meeting. We're continuing these for public comment. There's no public hearings tonight, but there is public comment at the end. Emergency evacuation plan, 2 doors behind you, go out left and right. And if we could stand for pledge of allegiance. Please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a couple of things tonight. We haven't had a meeting. We did not have a meeting in May. We had lost our dear secretary, Sandy Lukowitz, unexpectedly on May 1st. Or if I could have a moment of silence for her, please, tonight. Thank you very much. I'd also like to welcome to the board tonight, Sherry Elderkin. She's new tonight. And Mr. Price, I said, he's also new, but he is not here tonight. Okay, first we'll have the approval of minutes. April 27th, 22. Take a motion for that. A motion to approve the minutes. I have a motion by Mr. Reyes. I have a second.
I'll second it.
I have a second by Mr. Smith. And discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have a ratification of decisions. Marianne's Manor owner, Marianne Lewandowski. Applicant same, ratification of preliminary plan with 2-lot minor subdivision with 1 existing house, AP 66 lot 15, zoned RR2, address 151 Reed Schoolhouse Road. I get a motion for that ratification, please.
Make a motion and we ratify as presented.
Mr. Smith, second. Second by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, proposed realtors, also a ratification.
Do we?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Okay, we have a proposed retail store, which is, we now know that it's a Dollar General, owner Michael W. and Kimberly K. Hodges, applicant Garrett Homes LLC, ratification of a final plan to combine 2 lots, demolish the existing building and construct a new retail store with associated parking and site improvements. AP 56 lots 9 and 11, zone VMC, address 495 Washington Street and MacArthur Boulevard. Have a motion to ratify.
A motion to ratify.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Reyes, I have a second by Mr. Kalunian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, Walmart, we have another ratification of decisions. Owner Walmart Real Estate Business Trust, applicant Walmart and Company, CO Tyler Latimer, ratification of a development plan and review for an approximate 29,600 square foot addition to the west side of their existing building for a market fulfillment center, APC, AP6, Lot 1, Zone BP, 650 Center New England Boulevard. Have a motion for the ratification.
Motion to ratify.
I have a motion by Mr. Anderson. I have a
Second it.
second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I have a recommendation to zoning for special use permit. Sprimoli AFDU addition, 1928 Vicky Highway, applicant Kirsten Sprimoli, owner applicant Paul and Kirsten Sprimoli. Applicant is seeking the special use permit to construct a 30 by 26 AFDU addition, AP 310 lot 174.1, zoned RR5. Address is 1928 Victory Highway. Anybody here representing the applicant? Come on up, sir. Oh, okay. All right. All right, no problem. Thank you.
Good evening.
Want to give a quick overview of what you.
Sure. Okay, so I'm Carl Sarby, the architect on behalf of the owner. I do have an affidavit with her giving me permission if anybody needs to see that.
I think we're good.
Okay,
If you want to give it to staff, that would be fine.
okay. Okay, the owner obviously gave us a packet. Since then, we've actually done a little more development than what you may have before you, and that is final septic system design that's been submitted to DEM. So on behalf of my client, what I would say relative to either the screen or the site sketch that you have before you, and again, I did bring an ink copy of the final site plan, but essentially the new leach field is placed on the left side of the house, a little toward the front. Do you want me to just submit an exhibit of the ink final drawing or no?
It's not necessary.
Okay. 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 I'll just stick with the verbiage. So again, on the left side of the house, as seen on the screen toward the front, is a new larger leach field. Even before we were considering doing this AFDU, there had been talk about needing to replace the leach field. So when it came time to design the AFDU, we went through several different options and obviously looked at what would be less intrusive, both for the houses and for the development, the environmental aspects of the site. So the leach field was far more lucrative on the left. So it left us really two locations for the AFDU, either the left side of the house, which either A, would have still infringed on the back the same way that we're asking with the submission tonight, or B, it would have been protruding toward the front of the house, which poses other problems when you have dwellings like that extending beyond the front of the house. So it left us with the right side of the house. We did look at obviously other options, trying to stay within the house. It was not lucrative to the needs of the program. We looked at putting it in the garage, and it would have simply just had us recreate the wheel with another garage, which would have been on the left side of the house and a whole new driveway all the way up to the street. So it was far less intrusive, again, both environmentally and structural wise, to come up with the solution on the right. What does that leave us with? It leaves us with an infringement to the back. The existing house is already infringed, so we stayed as far as we could within that infringement. We had an original plan that also infringed on the right, and I did a lot of what I'll call legwork with my client to make sure to bring that in so that we are not infringing on the right. And that's the solution that we have tonight. A thing that may not relate to the planning board is to the zoning board. I need to admit that we are asking for other exits. That relates to a building code issue, which I would argue no matter what AFDU you do, you need an exit because it's essentially a dwelling that would have already sent me to zoning. That's
What
about
the
it.
board doing tonight is, it's a recommendation. For
Yes.
the owner. You'll still have to appear as.
Yeah. Understood.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions. So are you saying you couldn't, I guess I see how it's kind of on an angle off to the right there, but you couldn't tuck that in closer to the garage and still meet the sideline setback? If it looks,
The
it looks like you tried to angle it so you wouldn't infringe on the 50-foot setback line, but it also looks like, I mean, between the garage and where the unit itself is kind of boxed off, is that like a passageway or?
in structural terms, it's enough width area to not have the garage sink because of our new foundation that would be deeper than the garage. So there's a structural reason where I always give a little separation there. So that would explain what I'd call the gooseneck, a little extra extension before the AFDU. Now, to answer your question, as far as both the rotation and the location, I would argue that we're not asking for a right side yard infringement. So we actually have held that within the area where we're allowed to build. So it's simply just the rear setback where we've infringed.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out why you couldn't just hold why you had to angle it so the corner was closer to the rear setback as opposed to just keeping the line of the addition, parallel to the lines of the existing dwelling. Why did you have to angle it like that?
I didn't have to. I would admittedly put that on the architect who's me, and just the way to place. In layman's terms, it's so that the tail doesn't wag the dog. As soon as you angle what hopes to be a smaller addition than a larger house, it helps give credence to the house and therefore introduce a nicer setting. So admittedly, I didn't have to do that angle is my answer.
Okay. So you did it for basically aesthetics and view.
That is correct.
And you felt that would offset because it was already infringing on the back line anyway. Okay. And then the other thing is you said you put your application in for what are you doing? Upgrading, adding on to the existing on-site wastewater treatment system?
The current out system was already flirting with being non-compliant. Non-conforming, correct. I'm sorry. And then additionally, we are admittedly asking for a proposed new bedroom. Therefore, with the addition of the bedroom, it had to be a new system.
Right. Yeah, but where did you say it was going? I'm sorry. On this plan, it just says approximate. Is that existing? Is where I'm sorry, I didn't see where the new one was.
So Coventry Survey has in fact put it exactly where I guessed they were going to put it, and we've since worked together in collaboration. So if you see a rectangle with dashed lines with my own note, it's at that exact same location, but a heck of a lot bigger.
Okay, I didn't see that. That's what I was looking. So you said it's going on the left side of the house, somewhere in the same vicinity as where the existing one is.
Yeah, only it's call it 2/3 of the footprint of the main house that you see next to it. It's a large footprint that they.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with the footprint. I just wanted to know where it's going. So is it coming more towards the front, more towards the back, or more towards from the existing one? Are you going to use the same distribution box and then just increase the size of the bed? I don't have it on any of my plans. I only show the existing.
Everything is new. The new septic tank is slightly behind and in the general area slightly to the right of the existing one, closer to the house. And the new septic system is on the side of the house protruding toward the front. So it extends toward the front beyond the house.
So almost flip the one that's there forward.
Yes.
It's outside of, it's just, it wasn't shown and I was just curious to see. Okay. So you're upgrading the septic to take care of the additional bedroom. So we're all set.
Brand new system.
Yeah. That's usually the only contingency that we have on these in-law apartments.
Understood.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other board members have any questions for the applicant?
Karen,
Go ahead.
it's probably not a beautiful door. The only entrance you have is in the garage on this design right now.
You mean on the proposed AFTU? No. So we have what we know is a mandatory entrance to the interior of the existing house. That would be behind or including the garage. So there's an interior access from the main house to the proposed AFTU. So that's one. And then additionally, I have two exterior proposed entrances, one being in the gooseneck that this gentleman asked about a few moments ago, just to the right of the garage. And then a second one is over on the right side where you'll see an appendage coming out to the right. Two exterior doors, one interior.
I just didn't, and I looked at it pretty good from this, and I thought there was only one entrance to the garage. And that's my question: is the garage considered a shared space? That's all. You're saying that there's another entrance that goes into the house, not just into the garage.
That is correct. My answer to you is it's a both and. We absolutely wanted the garage to be a shared space so that it is marketed to zoning and used in reality as a family house and not something rentable. So the garage is a shared hub. And then additionally, for my safety building code reasons, I do have additional exterior doors.
Excellent.
I actually have a question.
Go ahead.
Why are we building off to the side instead of building above?
You mean above the garage?
Yes.
We did look at that scheme at length. The answer to that was multi-pronged. The main answer is that the garage just wasn't working, and we would have then had to reinvent a new garage over to the left of the house with a new driveway going all the way to Victory Highway. And in my opinion, kind of ruining the whole environment of the neighborhood and the house. And so it kept everything in place. To simply build above the garage would have, from the owner's standpoint, been essentially a rebuild. We would have had to take the garage roof off. We may have had to dig deeper for the garage foundation, which means you just basically are starting over. And from a construction standpoint, it's far easier to move it next to. But again, the main reason is that that garage still stayed there so that they both have a space to park. So in quick terms, it was to keep the garage.
So it's gonna be a 1 floor.
It actually is, we're calling it a loft. There's an open loft / bedroom. So in formal terms, it's 2-story.
Okay.
It'll have the read of a 1.5 stories.
Okay. Anybody else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Burke.
For the project name 1928 Victory Highway, special use permit. This is a recommendation to the zoning board. The owner applicant is Kirsten Spremuli, 1928 Victory Highway, AP 310, lot 174.1, zone RR5. It's a single-family dwelling, and the proposed use is a single-family dwelling with a proposed in-law unit. The applicant is seeking a special use permit to construct a 30-foot by 26-foot addition for an accessory family dwelling unit in-law apartment. In the findings of fact, the property has permanent access to a public street and has an existing driveway. The proposal will provide for safe ingress and egress of vehicles. The property has sufficient off-street parking. The property has adequate space for storage of trash receptacles and room for trash pickup. Utilities are pre-existing. The applicant will need to submit an OWTS plan to DEM to ensure the system will support the addition of a bedroom. The adjacent properties are single-family residential uses. The proposal is compatible with the abutting lots. Section C.4 of the comprehensive plan establishes the need to create housing in town that is accessible to all residents, regardless of age or economic status. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And if the applicant is issued a special use permit, then this project should have no detrimental impacts to the public health, safety, welfare, or morals. Therefore, I put forward a favorable recommendation to the zoning board, and I would like to include the director's report in my motion.
And we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second it.
We have a second by Mr. Riggs. Any discussion?
I have one more follow-up, and I don't know if this is for the attorney or for her, but I'm reading this specific 255-210. The principal means of ingress and egress to an accessory family dwelling shall be through the living area within the principal residence. Does the garage count as the living area of the principal residence to meet that requirement? Because that's what's written in the report.
Is there an entrance from the garage into the living area?
We have an entrance shown from her art studio, which is the representing the back portion of the garage and
Okay,
separate from the
thank
garage.
you. That's
It
it.
has a
I
door.
just couldn't, that's what I wanted to get clarified.
It may or may not be requested by my client, but I wanted to defer to zoning as to whether they had us do that or not. So in other words, the interior door is there both from living space to living space and from garage to both living spaces. Admittedly, the owner is not so thrilled about the living space to living space one, and we wanted to defer to zoning or to your committee.
It looks like that's the requirement in the ordinance.
Yes.
It has to be from living area, not from the
Yes.
garage, not from the garage bay.
And I remember that myself from zoning here, probably about 10 years ago. So,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Okay,
I'll second.
thanks. Yep.
Any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Hey, good luck, it's up. Okay, next we have Plouffe in-law apartment addition, 54 Wisteria Drive, applicant Lisa Plouffe, owners Scott and Lisa Plouffe, applicant is seeking a special use permit to construct a 29 by 45 in-law addition with garage, AP 18 lot 62, zone R20. It's 54 Wisteria Drive. Anybody here representing the applicant? Come on up, sir.
Good evening, I'm Scott, homeowner of 54 Wisteria.
Okay.
And we had to seek a permit to build an in-law apartment.
Yes.
Residence. And we're doing it mostly because my wife-in-law is getting to that age where they're unable to control themselves. Father-in-law has issues with walking. So we're going to keep everything at one level, like 54 Wisteria, keep it aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood. And that's what we're asking for.
Okay, pretty straightforward. Any questions by the board on this applicant?
I got a question.
Go ahead, Glenn.
So this, okay, now the last time I saw that interior door in the other project. This one, I see it's completely on the other side of the garage. Okay, so that's gonna pose the question, to planning, is the garage considered part of the principal residence? I don't know if we ever answered that.
I'm gonna say, I'm thinking no, because it's not a living, you can't live in the garage legally. And for any purpose, I mean, a garage could be detached.
Right, so at the drawing, I missed the other one, but I clearly saw it afterwards.
I see it as, even if it's attached to the house, the garage is not living space. You can't sleep in a garage
Right, so the
legally.
way that this is presented, you're on the other side of the garage, not really attached to, you're attached to the garage.
Yes.
So then the question I asked is, the garage considered part of the principal residence? That's all.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but John, in terms of how we interpreted it in the past?
Is there any other entrance besides the garage?
Yes,
To get into this, so they have their own entrance,
they will, next to the garage.
but it's not through your living space.
No.
If that's the question, I think zoning will be able to answer that. But you'll have to go to zoning.
Right. I will say in the past, where the garage was in between both the main living area and the accessory family dwelling unit. So it has happened before.
So it is a shared entrance. It's just not considered living space, but you get taxed on your garage, so.
The reason that the ordinance was written that way was to prevent in-law apartments from becoming rental units.
Right.
After the occupants pass or whatever happens, they're stuck with an apartment. And if you have it without its own unobstructed entrance to the living area, it's conducive to becoming a rental unit when you have like parking spaces or garages.
It makes sense.
That's why, I mean, I didn't catch it until I reread. That's why I didn't bring it up initially with the first application. If she actually constructed a room in the back of the garage and then uses that room to get through, I mean, we're splitting hairs, but that's just my thought. And by the way, we're just a recommendation to the zoning board. So regardless whether we don't issue a recommendation, an unfavorable recommendation or a favorable recommendation, it doesn't preclude you from still going to the zoning board.
Our staff does recommend passage on our director's report.
A recommendation I might have is that in your recommendation that you have raised this question, and we'll look at that a little closer. And because I'm also the lawyer for the zoning board, and we should have a backup plan in case they can require it.
Yes, we'll devise one. We'll get one.
It's a good point, though.
We do address these by putting a condition on our decisions that if it's ever sold, that the special use permit expires with the sale, and whoever buys it has to reapply.
Certainly, yeah, this is our forever home, so we're not going anywhere. But in the space afterwards, you know, when it's no longer needed, will be converted to a family, so that we can enjoy the backyard.
I appreciate what you're doing too, by the way.
It's the right thing.
Absolutely.
I don't have my parents with me, so I can understand the frustration of not being able to take care of someone. So we're doing it.
We can just put that in our motion.
Yeah, that's what I.
Okay. Okay, any other questions from the board for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
All right, make a motion to move this forward to the zoning board of review. So the project name, Buck In-Law Apartment Addition, for a special use permit. Owner applicant is Scott and Lisa Bluff. Address is 54 Wisteria Drive, AP 18, lot 62. It's zoned R20 residential. The existing use now is single family dwelling. Proposed use is the same, single family dwelling, proposed with in-law use. So the applicant has stated is seeking a special use permit to construct a 29 by 45 addition for an accessory family dwelling unit, an in-law apartment. I will have a stipulation at the end, once I find these finding of facts, as a requirement of safe ingress and egress for the vehicle. The property has permanent access to public street and has an existing driveway. The proposal will provide for safe ingress and egress of vehicles. As to the off-street parking, the property has sufficient off-street parking. Pertaining to the adequate trash and storage delivery areas, the property has adequate space for storage and trash recyclables, and the room for trash pickup. As far as the availability of location for the utilities, the applicant will need to submit plans to RIDM to ensure that the OWTS system is adequate for the additional bedroom. As far as general compatibility with the abutting lots, the adjacent properties are single-family residential uses. The proposal is compatible with the abutting lots. Pertaining to the general compatibility with the comp plan, the comprehensive plan, the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. If the special use permit is granted, will it create conditions inimical to public health and welfare? Well, the applicant has issued a special use permit. If issued one, then the project should have no detrimental impact to the public health, safety, welfare, or morals. In stipulation, and maybe I'll try to word this, I'm sure I could be bailed out, is that zoning does recognize this as a principal residence, that the garage has a principal residence for the entranceway. That's my stipulation. That makes any sense. I'd like to incorporate the director's report in my motion.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll
I have
second
a
it.
second. And Mr. Smith, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Good luck at zoning. What?
Chuck Smith.
Okay, we have more recommendations to zoning. The next one is Marco Camper Pad, 38 Laurie Lane, applicants Robert and Kathleen Marco, owner Bamford Lakeside Properties, applicant is seeking a special use permit to demolish 1960 cottage and replace it with a 40 by 16 by 2 trailer pad, AP 324 lot 20.003-72, zoned RR2, 38 Laurie Lane. Anybody here representing the applicant? Come on up. Is that correct? Hi. You just want to give a quick,
So my
overview.
parents were the first ones in Calvo's, when Calvo's owned the campground.
Yes.
That was back in 1956. I was a year old. So the house, my parents built the house in 1960 with all the neighbors. They all helped out. And over the course of the years, the little pine trees that were this big are now this big, and we've taken them down, but it's resulted in structural issues with the house. And and the roof is leaking where I would have to rip it right down to like 2x6s and replace the whole. So the floors are uneven. And I'm not sure how much it's going to cost. And seeing that it is leased land, and Carol Banford's behind it, I have a letter from her saying it's okay. The option we thought was, instead of putting all our good money into the camp, then I look at it and say, what if they say, Carol says 5 years from now, everybody has to get out. Now I just dropped all this money into the house, I'm going to lose. So the option was to remove the house and make it level from the road, come out 16 feet flush with the road, 40 feet wide, 2 feet high. And the 2 feet high would be, they call them mafia blocks. They're a cement block. Basically, a pad with crushed stone on top, gravel, crushed stone on top. So we could put a fifth wheel in there or put a 40-foot trailer in there. Then if we ever had to get out, we could hook up a trailer and just take it out.
Now, is there an existing cesspool there now?
There is a tank in the ground.
Will that be decommissioned or will
Yeah.
you be using that for the camper?
No, I'll decommission it. We'll
Okay.
have a sewage truck come in and pump it out.
Okay.
We'll have a tank under the trail.
Any other questions from the board?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Smith.
Are there any how close to the water are you?
From the house, where the house is
Setback,
right now.
yeah.
We're on.
You're on the water. Are there any requirements from DEM before you do demolition and site work, start moving earth
I haven't
around
gone
stuff?
through DEM.
Okay,
I'm about, bear with me.
You're definitely within 50 feet of the water.
within
Oh,
50
yeah.
feet of the water, yeah,
Yes.
okay, so there may be some requirements from DEM when you do demo, but that you'd probably deal with the building inspector for a demo permit and whatnot. But just giving you a heads up on
Because
that.
I was told I could knock the house down and put another house in its place. Because it has the existing, but to do this other, to remove the house and to build a pad, then
You might want to look into that.
Do you have somebody that's gonna take the house down?
yes.
I'm sure they
They'll
worked
know.
with it. They'll know that.
Yeah, they gave me it's local company.
Yeah.
They gave me a really good price to, one time to remove it and, take all the pine trees out of there, all the roots and take everything out. And, cause I was told that, when I drive my pontoon boat by your house, I want to say, I did that work on that house around that pad. So that's where we are. So it's just
Is it a foundation now or is it?
no, it's on blocks.
Oh, it's on blocks.
It's on cement blocks that are just over the course of the years, the tree roots have just, and the house settles. And I mean, you walk in my house and the cards and the floor kind of dips down a little bit, goes back up, and
Yeah. And
the cement blocks have fallen over.
and the pad's gonna be pretty much the same footprint that you're demolishing,
Yeah,
but not closer to the.
no, it's actually smaller
Oh,
because the house is, I want to say 25 by 23. 23 being come down the walkway, house would be on the left, so that's 23 feet to where the deck is. So it's actually going to be shorter with 16 feet.
but not closer to the water.
No, not closer to the water,
But not
actually farther away.
Maybe a little farther.
Any other board members have any questions? I'm just happy you're getting rid of the cesspool on Johnson's Pond because that makes me happy.
We've been there forever.
Yeah.
We plan on, I'm just trying to do the right thing I can think of.
It sounds like you are to me. But it is, so there's no other questions. I'll entertain a motion. If
I'll make the motion, Mr. Flynn.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Like to make a favorable motion for the Mako camper pad It's Robert and Kathleen Marco on 38 Laurie Lane. And as Mr. Marco has stated, it belongs to Bamford, the actual property. Plat and lot, assesses plat 324, lot 20.3-72, RR2 residential zoning, existing use cottage. Proposed use would be a camper pad with a retaining wall. The applicant is seeking a special use permit to demolish the existing cottage and replace it with a 40-by-16 trailer pad and a retaining wall, and also remove the existing old cesspool.
Quick, take a note on that also.
Yes, sir.
I own the house, Bamford owns the property.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's just-
Yep.
I pay taxes on the house.
Okay. Okay. So as zoning board special use permit section 860 and 861, requirement ingress and egress of the lot or existing proposed structures, ingress and egress of the lot provided by an existing drive with permanent physical access to Laurie Lane. The proposed addition will not impede automotive or pedestrian safety, traffic flow, or access to the property. Off-street parking. Sufficient off-street parking is available on the property, and the proposed addition will not decrease the number of parking spaces. Trash is not applicable. This is a dumpster on the campground. Utilities are pre-existing. Screening and buffering is not applicable. Signs, not applicable. Required yards and open space, not applicable. General compatibility with lots of the same abutting zoning districts. The abutting properties and surrounding neighborhood is primarily single-family residential and seasonal campsites. The proposal is compatible with the abutting properties. The use will not result or create conditions or exceed industrial performance. That's not applicable. General compatibility with Coventry comp plan. The proposal is generally consistent with the Coventry comprehensive plan. The granting will not result in conditions applicable to public safety, health, and morals and welfare. The granting of the special use permit should not affect the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. And actually, by removing the cesspool, it will increase it. And planning staff also has a favorable grant recommendation for the issuance of the removal of the non-conforming and put the camper pad.
Would you like to add the director's report?
And to include the director's report in the recommendation to the zoning board also.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Reyes. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck.
One question.
Sure,
Can
go
I
ahead.
contact DEM regarding, because it's not, was it 50 feet from the water? Depends where the water is.
Mr.
There is water now, right?
You probably want to talk to the town engineer.
Yeah, why not?
Engineer.
Yeah, you might need a wetlands permit
Yes.
to do work within 50 feet of navigable water.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Okay, next, another recommendation to zoning. It's Andrade Adult Daycare, 2 St. Vincent de Paul Street. Applicant Gregory Andrade. Owner, Church of St. Vincent de Paul. Applicant is seeking a special use permit to establish an adult daycare facility. AP 55, lot 22, zone R20. It's 2 St. Vincent de Paul Street. Anybody here representing the applicant? Come on up.
Evening, Chairman, board members. Attorney Stephen Berlard for the applicant.
Address, please.
Bianchi, Berlard, Souza, and O'Connell, all offices at 56 Pine Street, Providence, Rhode Island.
Thank you. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just want to, I mean, I know this is so needed. If you just want to let us know what you're planning on doing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Andrade. I'm the owner of Andrade Adult Daycare. And right now we're operating in Warwick on at 1755 Bald Hill Road. So we're at full capacity there, in the process of developing a waiting list. And we service adults from 21 and over with cognitive, physical, and developmental disabilities. And they come Monday through Sunday. We're open Monday through Sunday. Some people come 7 days. Most people come 3 to 5. We serve breakfast, lunch. We do outings. We do a lot of activities in the building. We have physical therapy that comes in. We have medical services. I'm a nurse, so we can do health checks, that type of thing. The day begins at 8, we end at 4. And that's about it.
Now, is that going to be located where the school was?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
It'll be in the school.
Yes,
There's plenty of parking, and
absolutely.
it's so much needed.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate what you do. Anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
I do, Mr. Chairman. No demolishing or anything?
Nothing. Nope. We're going to use the kitchen, cafeteria, classrooms, everything.
And the rectory, the church and all that staying, is that?
Yes. Yep. We'll
You're
just be in the
using the
school.
facility, correct?
Yes,
Oh.
we're in the school. That's it.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Are you gonna keep the old location and this the second one?
Yes.
And do we still have one operating at Our Lady OLC?
I'm not sure.
MacArthur Boulevard.
Well, there was one over there.
Was
I remember they came before this board.
They
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
I don't know. if it's
I know there is a need. I just was
Oh, there's
curious.
definitely a need.
Yeah.
And that,
I get calls every day. Yeah, that's why we're going to another location, because the need is so high that right now we have about 40 people enrolled. We service about 110 people a day. So we're at capacity where we are now. So
People that take care of their parents and work. It's just similar to when you have kids.
exactly.
You need to have somewhere for them to go. So it's great that you do that.
that's a really nice building.
Yeah, it's
And that whole campus is really nice.
yeah, it's a perfect spot. Absolutely.
Anybody else for the applicant? Any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Clunian.
I'd like to make a favorable recommendation to the zoning board for the applicant Gregory Andrade. The owner of the property is the Church of St. Vincent de Paul, located at 2 St. Vincent de Paul Street, Assessors Plat 55, Lot 22 in the R20 zone. The current use is a church. The proposed use is to, I believe, keep the church, but operate the adult daycare center in the old school building. And the applicant is seeking a special use permit to operate that in the R20 zone. The property is located on St. Vincent de Paul Street. There's a right-of-way with access to Washington Street and Anthony Street, and the property does therefore provide safe ingress and egress of vehicles. The property has sufficient off-street parking, and the applicant has indicated all of the clients will likely arrive by bus or van or get dropped off. The existing parking lot should be sufficient for staff and visitors. The property has adequate space for storage of trash receptacles and room for trash pickup. There are pre-existing utilities. There should be no need for additional screening and buffering given the pre-existing and the new proposed use. No signs are currently being proposed. Any new signage will require a building permit from the Coventry Building Department. The required area setbacks and buffering requirements will be met by the proposal. The adjacent properties are a mix of residential and commercial uses, and this proposal is generally compatible with the abutting lots or uses thereon. Compliance with industrial performance standards is not applicable. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and if the applicant has issued a special use permit, then this project should have no detrimental impacts to the public health, safety, welfare, or morals. And I'd like to incorporate the planning director's report into my motion. As noted, we'll make favorable recommendation to the zoning board of review.
Thank you. I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Anderson. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Good luck.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, 7.5, we have another recommendation to zoning. It's Guy Gill, 57 Hill Farm Camp Road, applicant Guy Gill, CO attorney Tom Cronin, owners Guy and Linda Gill, applicant seeking a special use permit for a deck addition and new roof structure over the existing deck, AP 33 lot 6.13-57, zone RR2, 57 Hill Farm Camp Road. Hello, Mr. Cronin.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Cronin, 1070 Main Street, Coventry, Rhode Island, for the applicant Guy Gill. If the chairman would indulge me, I just wanted to say that certainly agree with the board's remembrance of Sandy, and she certainly brought a lot of common sense and warmth to these meetings over decades.
Yeah.
And I appreciate her.
Did a lot for the town, too.
Yeah.
Really gave back a lot of her time.
So I finally remember her as well.
Yes.
It's
Me
good to
also.
think of her, right?
I get goosebumps here, Mr. Cronin.
Sorry. So this is, I assume that Mr. Studley put me last because this is the most complicated item on the agenda. All right. Or I kicked over his coffee in the office. I don't know.
We just wanted to see.
Yeah.
You know.
So I'm here for a recommendation to zoning because it's required. I wrote these cockamamie condominium docs that require that every expansion of a non-conforming use in Hill Farm condominium get approval from the condominium board, approval from a recommendation from this board, and an approval from the zoning board. I wish maybe that I had considered the 6-foot expansion of a deck when I was thinking of those things, but here we are. We're going to put a 6-foot expansion of this deck out to the west. There's no other house out to the west. The pond is out to the west. So we're going to expand the roof over the deck. Going to put a hot tub underneath. If you're ever driving by, go up and visit. No structure, no walls, no bathrooms, no changes to plumbing, electricity, any of those things. This is, strictly an exterior improvement. So utilities will be the same, parking will be the same, trash is by dumpster on the Hill Farm condo. No increase in the number of occupants, bedrooms, bathrooms, simply an exterior improvement. And Mr. Smith, you were right that I did get that approval for OLC school for St. Elizabeth's Cornerstone.
Yes.
And I don't think they ever opened it, and I don't know why. I might go chase that guy down in the parking lot. But anyway, that's there's nothing else going on. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. The key is it's not conforming, right? So, yeah, it's before the zoning.
Well, Guy, admittedly, had a lot of house on this lot before. But it is what it is.
That's right.
He's closest to the big stump on the right where he's at now.
Yeah.
Any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Motion to move this project forward to zoning board of review to obtain a special use permit. Alteration of a non-conforming structure. Project name 57 Hill Farm Camp Road. Applicant owner Guy Gill, address 57 Hill Farm Camp Road, AP 33, lot 6.13, zone RI2 residential. Existing use will remain the same, single family residential. The applicant seeking a special use permit to have a deck and a roof structure for the existing home. Finding the fact as it pertains to the requirement of ingress and egress should to this lot is provided via an existing driveway with permanent physical access to Hill Farm Camp Road. The proposed addition will not impede automotive or pedestrian safety, traffic flow, or access to the property. Requirement of off-street parking, while sufficient off-street parking is available on the property, the proposed addition will not decrease the number of parking spaces. Utilities are already pre-existing. Compatibility with the abutting lots, the abutting properties and surrounding neighborhood is primarily single-family residential. The proposal is compatible with the abutting properties. General compatibility with comp plan. The proposal is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. granting, this special use permit, should not affect the health, safety, welfare of the neighborhood. And I'll just add the plain record report to my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second it.
By Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries.
Thank the board.
Good luck at zoning.
See you next month.
All right. Oh, next week. Are you on next week?
There's a meeting. Come on.
Next week.
I'll be here. One day at a time.
In less than 1 week, I get to see you twice, Mr. Crowley. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a recommendation to the town council amendment and of ordinances recommended on proposed ordinance amending chapter 175, section 5, use of facilities of the town of Coventry Municipal Code to include the prohibition of electronic cigarettes and similar vaping devices in town athletics and recreation facilities. Does staff want to explain that? It's pretty self-explanatory.
It is. I just, it just a general little introduction. It came to you folks originally as a recommended ordinance change specific to Parks and Rec related facilities. And since we already have an existing ordinance that deals with non-smoking and that sort of stuff, I'm recommending essentially a strike all change that you affect that particular ordinance so that it addresses all properties that are town properties to include this in there. So I'm not arguing with what came in the door, but just trying to make it more generic and comprehensive with regard to this issue. So that's the, so sorry for the bulk of stuff, but I want to make sure you could see how it transferred to you. Tried to put it in with a cover memo enough so that you'd be able to understand all the issues as it comes forward. And then I think there was a handout in your packet either tonight or whatever. This just literally came out and thought it would be just of interest to be supporting documentation for what's before you. If you have particular questions on the language, I'm happy to answer it. But essentially what it's doing is it's prohibiting vaping and everything and of that similar nature, along with already our smoking and non-smoking tobacco related type of products like chewing tobacco as a prohibition on town property, essentially in and outside, except for areas that may be designated for such activities.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Perfect. Great job.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, Go
just
ahead,
have a
Rick.
quick, are they designated, like if you were to leave this meeting, member of the public and wanted to go outside, is there a designated smoking area outside?
I don't know the answer to that question. I know that most ordinances will have an area that will say, beyond 50 feet or 35 feet of a building or any kind of an ingress egress area, or got to go out to a public right of way like the sidewalk or something like that. But I'm not aware. I mean, most people, I only know of like one person, one employee that really smokes and she just goes away. But that is something I'm be happy to look into to see if there's anything further.
Well, I just wondered, I'm more concerned with the visitors.
Yeah.
And again, I wholeheartedly agree, particularly when there's sporting events and there's public gatherings, but I was just curious to see if it were obviously nothing in the building. I was just curious to see if there were designated areas, or are we just basically saying any town property? Because I mean, you could be on an open space parcel going for a walk.
I was just looking for the comprehensive plan today. Someone asked me about something with regard to town-owned properties, and I went off to our town webpage where you can use GIS, and I put in town of Coventry, and about 500 parcels came up, and I had a little heart attack. But
that was kind of my that would be my only comment.
Right.
I mean, I agree with it, but hopefully this thing isn't going to be so restrictive that it becomes.
It does speak to that, but if there's a little tiny triangle of open space somewhere that's left over from a development, I don't think that's going to be enforced, first of all. But it is possible if there are people that are standing next to one another at a little fishing access or something, someone could say, hey, smoking is prohibited here from that standpoint. So there is further clarity that I could make from that standpoint. But I think it would be good to start with this, and then we can whittle at it as an amendment.
Yeah, it certainly seems that this is going to you know, it, from where we sit, it complies with the comprehensive plan, but it was just a general comment.
Yep.
It used to be, you went north, came out in the hallway and you went off the doors on Route 117, you went north, and there was a distance away from the building that you could smoke, because the general public, this was a year ago, comes in over here. So there was no smoking in this area, but employees or residents could go out that way to the front of the building. Then there's a distance. There's what there used to be.
The state law is 35 feet.
Is that from the doorway?
From any entrance.
So it's prohibited over here because that's where people go in and out. And it used to be heard that you had to go out to the
Gotcha.
north.
Right. Right. And that just because I'm new enough, I'd have to do some more
And that's not
research to
top
see
of the
that.
Doorway, you know,
Yeah.
so that's where we go.
Okay.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, so the 8.1 reads town athletic, devices at town athletic and recreational facilities, but this package just kind of goes beyond that, then, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Nicely done, Herb.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Great.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. There's no other questions.
Let's see if I can get this right. I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
That we approve the recommendation on a proposed ordinance amending Chapter 175, Section 5, use of facilities of the Town of Coventry Municipal Code to include the prohibition of electronic cigarettes and similar vaping devices at town athletic and recreational facilities, as presented to us by the planning director.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second. I have a second.
Second.
I have a second by Mrs. Elderkin. Any discussion?
He has discussed.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Our recommendation is to amend the ordinance, but are we supposed to go into a little more detail here and actually select one of the?
I would think recommended as written.
As written, that's what I said.
As written.
The fourth item in our packet was open an entirely new ordinance, rewritten ordinance. So
It goes beyond town athletic and recreational facilities. That's my concern. And that's what's posted on the agenda.
Right. So it came to you from the council, I guess, in the specific to Parks and Rec from that standpoint. That's why it's on the agenda the way it is. Then what I did was what I took it is that essentially it was what is before you.
Right.
What I provided you as part of the packet was a recommendation that you do a strike all to what was given to you and recommend back to the council the new chapter in the code, which is chapter 223. And you can see the motion that I presented for you in the letter transmittal that I gave you. So what came to you is the Parks and Rec. What I've recommended is that you go beyond what was given to you and recommend back to the council the larger chapter.
Should we amend that motion to stipulate what he just said
Yes.
for that chapter?
And my follow-up question to that is if the ordinance is no longer chapter 175 and it's 223.
Well, the other one is still there. There's an existing Parks and Rec code that exists. So I've gone away from that.
My concern is the posting on the agenda. We're voting to make a recommendation concerning a proposed ordinance amending, and what's posted is chapter 175.
Section
and
5.
It pertains to the town athletic and recreational facilities. And I agree that it wouldn't be a problem for us to recommend this. I just wonder if we can do it or if we should wait a week until we meet again and
That's true with this Open Meetings Act, whether you're going beyond what's posted on the,
Oh, yeah. That's a violation, or could be.
yeah, there's sufficient notice.
Well, how's it a violation if everything that was part of the packet was posted with was made available as part of the posting, even though that what came from the council was to do this, but there's a staff recommend to do something beyond what was given to the planning commission.
What we go by is what's posted on the agenda.
Okay.
On the Secretary of State's website, and we don't want to attempt.
Yeah, no.
It's easy enough to We consider this at the next meeting.
Or we can approve what's on the agenda.
You could have
And then you
put
can
it on the
always add-
agenda with, and forward what you prepared to the council, because they may not want to apply it to all. They may have considered that. I don't know what their thinking was.
Right.
Whether they just wanted to have it to recreation and,
It came from them via a recreational issue that happened during an event.
right, so it might be a good idea, but let them come up with the idea and come to us.
The town manager's been consulted, as has the town solicitor on this. So, yeah.
Right, so I think what happens is they probably need to have the town council review the proposed recommendations that the town manager, yourself, and everyone else have had, and then have them bounce it back to us just with the other ordinance. And even although we approve this one tonight, it doesn't preclude them from accepting it or not accepting our recommendation of tonight.
It's just a recommendation.
But my concern is if we vote to a recommendation that they amend the ordinance to ban vaping on all town properties, and it wasn't posted that way in the agenda, the public may have an issue. They don't get the backup that you provided to us.
Right.
That was my concern.
Was there a reading involved of this? Does the town council do a reading, or there was nothing?
They at their level adopting it would, but they're seeking your recommendation prior to their
On this
process. Yep.
So they would have to do another recommendation if they wanted to do it for all properties.
If they have a multiple readings, they can change along the way as long as they do the proper noticing that from their agenda. From my standpoint too, you could recommend that they not adopt as it was given to you, but if you had this next week on your agenda or something, or because next week is full, even the one after that, you could say that we prefer to recommend the subject to the agenda being set up properly, what the director has recommended to you folks as a recommendation back to them. Either, doesn't matter.
I would just, go ahead and.
Well, we already did.
Vote on this one. Yeah.
We're voting on
this one.
how it's written.
Yes. Okay. So we have a
And
motion.
that's the motion that's on the table.
That's
All right, I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Reyes. I think we had enough discussion on this.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, next we have the director's report. You're on again, Herb.
Just very quickly, I'm trying to figure out ways one of the first things that Ron said to me when I came on board, I think it was here about 2 days, maybe two, was he felt that if there was a way to help expedite, speed up, your packed agendas to sort of get through the meetings a little bit faster, including the recommendations to the zoning board as for instance, a lot of what we talked about tonight, that he would appreciate any kind of input. There are a couple things that I would recommend that I think you do that would be fairly easy. I'm just throwing them out on the table for discussion tonight, just to introduce them more than anything else, not looking for any kind of action or support. But one of them is the possible addition or inclusion of what's called a consent agenda. A consent agenda, which I gave you copies of from that standpoint from another organization, and the council uses it as well, is essentially it's still part of your regular agenda, but it's carved out and you put in the consent agenda things that you typically want to fly through. The ratification of your decisions 30 days prior, the adoption of the minutes, potentially could be your zoning type of discussions, although tonight was, there is a level of protracted discussion as part of that where you still might want to have them out, but you could have them as part of your consent agenda. What happens in that particular instance is that there's one motion that passes the consent agenda. So someone moves to approve the consent agenda, someone seconds it. At that point, members state, the chair would solicit whether there are any members that wish to talk about any of the particular items that are in the consent agenda. If so, and any individual member, doesn't have to be a motion or anything like that, a member just says, I would like to pull the minutes because I have some changes or something. So that comes out. Once you've decided what comes out, you just act on the motion. So anything that's left in the consent agenda is automatically approved, even though they're separate agenda items. It's all a caveat motion. And then thereafter, the remaining items you discuss under regular
items and you have separate motions to approve them. That's one way to speed up your meeting a little bit, okay?
You want me to go faster than this?
Yes.
I can't read any faster.
Yeah, well, I would say, at least from the staff standpoint of the staff reports and all that, I do appreciate the fact that you guys very well recognize the effort that goes into that. But reading the information that we put out there from our standpoint, you could just waive the reading as a, for instance, and move right to your motions and all that and get into your questions.
Just on the ratifications, the people
Just-
that present,
right.
obviously.
Exactly. But if you have it as part of a consent agenda, you wouldn't even do that. It's just a motion to approve the consent agenda. And anything that's in there, if it's passed, it's done. You don't read anything in it. It's just that. Okay. So the only time you would have discussion on it is for any item that gets pulled out. And that's treated as a separate item at that point. Okay. So any of that stuff, the simple ones are those ratifications, the adoption of the minutes. Sometimes there's some other stuff that you might have that you just rip right through. But if you have it individually, it takes some time. If it's all lumped into the consent agenda, you're lumping all that together in one motion. Okay. So that's just, again, introducing that as a possible idea.
Is by our attorney? Is that all?
Yeah, that's fine. Especially things like the minutes and the ratifications. So it reads for every single ratification.
But recommendations that they
Right.
present, we can't do.
Right.
Right. You don't, right. Right.
Okay.
You don't have to, but I'm saying in those as sort of a secondary type of stuff, because I recognize tonight, it's the first time I've really heard the way that you deal with that. You can't include those in the consent agenda, but you could, as part of those particular individual ones, waive the reading of what the staff is, so that basically you're getting the presentation from the person. If there are any questions of board members, fine. Someone makes a motion to approve, whatever it is, but you don't have to read all of the background to it. And the way that we could help maybe speed that up is to craft a recommendation for you of a motion in advance. So you've got the motion in front of you. Okay.
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
One of the things that I see, can I speak, Ron?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I see that bogs us down is not just that, because, John does an awesome job and yourself, Herb, as far as laying it out. So we do like to give credit where credit is due. You guys put a lot of time into this. But some of the issues that we brought up tonight have been brought up through several members of the commission is our issues that are more of zoning issues, like, the Spermuli one with the garage,
right.
Is it really living area? Is it not? I mean, I think if, those are zoning issues, they're clearly zoning issues. They're not planning issues. And we spend a lot of time on that. And that was like Marco, how close to the water are you? And just probably enlightening them that there might be some other things they have to think about. But if that was just given to us as a consent agenda item and all those T's were crossed and I's were dotted, and you said these are good to go, then we could speed it up. Like I said, and was it Plouffe and Wood Estates, that to me, there was an issue with the entrance to the garage, and I did it in Laura years ago, and you had to have, like Rick was saying, a direct entrance from one unit to the other, and that definitely was not. But those are zoning issues. So we spend a lot of time. I mean, having issues like that why did they even come to us? I know it has to follow the comp plan, but it's kind of, a waste of our time. Where if John vetted that stuff out and you took a look at it and said it's a consent agenda item, that's up to the zoning board.
Yeah, I think it gives you a half answer tonight, is that what you're raising is kind of what I would put into the category of the folder that I'm maintaining as to where we should change our regulations and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that is here as it pertains to the specifics of zoning, number of egresses, does it meet the dimensional requirements, all that sort of, that's a zoning issue.
Yes.
What you guys should be doing is your recommendation is something that's under your purview,
Right.
that whether it's site plan related or something like that, that's going to affect that the recommendation should come what's under your purview to go there. But keep in mind too, you folks are responsible planning wise, not just the site plan and the quasi judicial aspect of subdivision and all that sort of stuff. So the responsibility of what's the vision of the community, comes from you. So when we someday have a comp plan again, and I'm going to be proactive about that, right? Because 20 years is enough to not have a plan, that should be a piece of it. So what I would like to do, and when we're far enough down with the comp plan, my idea is my next step is going to be pulling out the regulations and doing a holistic overall update to that instead of these piecemeal changes that we've had over time, because it is time to update our regulations and to do that. And I think this is a good example of where we need to give guidance in the regulations to the planning commission as to what specifically the purview of your recommendation needs to be. So that you're not sitting here as another zoning, you shouldn't be sitting as another zoning board, right?
Zoning board.
Right.
But I want to point out the reason that you bring things up like the on-site wastewater treatment plant, the proximity to the water, was it really an in-law or is it a two-family, depending on how all of those things would be in conflict with the comprehensive plan if they weren't addressed.
Correct.
It's not so much that we're sitting in the seat of the zoning board and quite frankly, I like to flush them out. And the same thing with that findings of fact. I mean, we read those because if our decisions are ever called into question, is what was the basis for the favorable motion? That's why we got in the habit of reading. I don't know. We could defer to the findings of fact that was in the packet on page 4 or 5 in the plan, because we incorporate the planning director's report anyway, without necessarily reading them.
Right.
But occasionally, I think sometimes the public likes to hear what was the reasoning. You guys just approved it, and we brought up all this public testimony, and they may disagree with some of those findings of fact. And if we don't read them into the record,
I totally agree with that. I'm not trying to say to limit it, but I'm just saying if there is more of an umbrella understanding of what is the basis of your recommendation, that gives you some clue. If there are other things that come up as part of a meeting, like tonight with a particular zoning issue, just like you said, that's really a zoning issue. Let's identify it as part of our recommendation for the zoning board to pay attention to. That's perfect.
The other thing that you have here on this planning board, from what I've seen, the 9-10 months that I've been on it, is that you have people here that really care. So we're interested in that, truly interested in what happens in our town, truly interested and kind of ingrained.
Yeah. And the other part of the town plan related stuff, the aspect is that you do have the vision and stuff. So zoning regs say you shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. It works both ways, but your measurement is going to say, hey, they're looking potentially to do a variance or a change of some sort. So yes, whatever the town plan is going for, is it acceptable to go against the grain of what is the vision for the particular community for the benefit of that individual? Or is there a bigger issue that we have to take into play that says, yeah, we understand you're doing this, but here's why we think that the zoning board should stick with what our direction of the town plan is.
I think it was explained to me too, because of the zoning came much after a lot of these developments, that with the development being non-conforming already. That's why it comes in front of planning, because if it wasn't non-conforming, it wouldn't come in front of us. It's just go to zoning.
Right. I've never dealt with a community that's had zoning adopted so late in history, right? Basically the very early 80s.
Yeah.
Most communities have had zoning 50s, 60s, 70s. So prior to a lot of development occurring, especially in the 80s and the late 70s.
Right.
And so what happens is in this particular community, there's a preponderance of non-conforming uses, whereas in most communities that had their zoning regs adopted prior to that boom, there's a lot fewer non-conforming uses. It's more the exception than the rule. Here, there seems to be a little bit more of the rule versus the exception because of that number of quantity of non-conforming uses. Yep. The other part, which may be that I think you could take 2 to 4 weeks out of the process. And again, this is up to you. It's just a suggestion. Again, putting it forward if you want to do it or not. But the time when you grant an approval on a certain night, your regular approvals. Then effectively you wait until your next meeting to ratify your vote. Under statute, correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Solicitor, is that there's a state 30-day window. If you don't act within the 30-day window, it's approved. So you've already granted your approval. And in a number of instances, your next meeting is going to be after that 30-day window. So it's moot to do the ratification process.
Yeah, but we
What I-
never did ratifications before.
Right.
This is something new.
What I'm suggesting is you could do one of two things. Do away with your ratification processes again. That adds 4 weeks to a developer and applicant right away.
I agree.
From that standpoint. If that's not comfortable for you because you feel that you need, because that you want to, what I'm getting at is, I think you can trust staff with your approvals from that standpoint, that we write up the stuff and we move on with regard to what the conditions are and finishing up so they can move on to their building permit process. If there's a level of, I feel we can do that. If there still is a level of discomfort by any or all of you to say, we still would like to have some level of review to confirm that's what we approved in terms of a written type of thing, to still shorten up the process, I might recommend that you authorize the chair to come in between meetings to sign off on the letters or whatever, that he could then do that. That could cut 2 weeks off. So I personally can live with doing away with the ratifications and just do the approvals. If there's a level of discomfort to that, I could still cut 2 weeks off by saying, if you guys authorize the chair to do that, you would still have that person representing you still looking at it in addition to what we're doing from that standpoint. So again, just trying to buy some time in the development review process.
Why did we start doing the ratification?
So the ratifications was explained to me because we never did them before. I've been on since 07. I would say the last 4 years we've been doing ratifications. The explanation to me was that when the director does the report and we review it, we might find something. Correct me if I'm wrong. We might find some discrepancy.
It's a double check
before we want to ratify it.
Mhm.
So I think that's why it was implemented. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I know I can speak to the zoning board. We do the ratification, so the solicitor can prepare the decision for the board to approve. Because we will, they can take it to Superior Court. You have to make sure you have a really good decision. No offense to planning staff, but sometimes, like we had the dog case out in Western Coventry, and we wrote that decision with Brian Wagner and my brother Nicholas Warren and myself. We all worked on that. And we won because our decision was really good. And no, I'm not trying to tell myself that.
No.
Jane, you did a good job.
But,
That's why we.
but you have to have, the judge is gonna look at that decision, and if that's your first strike, if you've got a good decision, lots of facts to back up your law and your decision, then judge is gonna go with the zoning board because it's arbitrary and capricious is the standard, and if you have a good decision, you're gonna win. On this level, I think the staff prepares the decisions, right? So there is, I think at this.
A good chunk of it, yeah. Yeah.
To do that with just routine decisions, and if you have a more involved decision, then wait for that.
Right.
I think if I can put words in your mouth, what happens to staff is developers
Right.
have these big projects. And when April comes, they only have so much working time.
Right.
So to tie them up for another month, they literally get beat up because they're like, where's my decision? Well, we didn't have the meeting left. Yeah.
Right. And it was a real problem last month because effectively 2 months went by because we just ratified stuff tonight that was from our April meeting.
We didn't have a May meeting.
Yeah, we didn't have a quorum, and then just trying to get you guys in the
Legal,
room
that makes
for
a
a
lot of
special
sense.
meeting was difficult in itself.
I think you can make a motion on the more complicated ones that you delay the entry of the decision until we've had a chance to prepare a written decision with staff or whatever.
Yeah.
Not the routine stuff, so that not.
Right. So like on a ratification of a comp permit, we
Right.
probably want to ratify that.
Yeah, so case by case basis, you could
Yes.
decide as part of, just like you say,
Makes a
this
lot
could
of
be a
sense.
minor amendment or a minor administrative final versus, when you go from preliminary to not have to come back to you. And I'm of the mind that's like, sometimes there's some big projects that I don't think you should be giving it. I appreciate the courtesy you're giving me with regard to an administrative final, but I think sometimes you folks need to have the final come back to you for some of these larger projects. And which again, sort of ties up the end so that when there is a final, when the approval goes through, you're not so worried about what the tail end of it is.
On those decisions, you should have a motion made up. in
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do we have a 30-day appeal period after our final?
My understanding is that, I don't,
I know zoning does, but I don't know about planning. And again, in a lot of those cases,
Planning is 30 days. Still.
yeah, but in those, I mean, so the developers and a lot of those larger projects are not going to want to break ground within 30 days because they could actually find themselves in court and then
right. but
be doing
here,
something different.
Clock doesn't start running. I think when you enter the final ratified decision, that's when that appeal clock starts running.
Not at the fine, so it's not actually, then we're even adding more time than we take by waiting.
Check with Dave on that.
I will. Okay.
Because I think he said, I think it's when because the actual decision, and I'm not trying to argue. I thought he said not at ratification, but at the night where they make the decision, that starts that 30-day thing. Yeah. But if it's the other way, I'd rather have it the other way because then that makes it a lot easier.
Perfect example. Last month, we didn't have a quorum. So
Correct.
again, now that's another month.
Right. Yeah. I've been taking a lot of phone calls in the last month.
And I understand it because right now it's building. You can't do it in January and February.
Right.
So they're losing 2 months.
Yeah, there's a guy that, for instance, tonight for one of the ratifications, he's going to be in my office at like 8:31 tomorrow morning looking to go get the building permit going because he had to hold off on a contractor.
Yeah, I started building a garage.
Available to signs.
I started a garage project in May and I wasn't able to break ground until the middle of October. By the time you went through the zoning, did your posting, your notices, got your ratification, and then pulled a permit, and then the guy had to give it and start to work.
I mean, we clearly, I'm not trying to just speed up for whatever. There's definitely times that John and I are like, yeah, we're not taking this in whatever month because we got to do some stuff. So we take the time that's necessary. But I do think just with the normal, there's a way to crunch some of the time frame up that I think would easily come across as a good level of customer service and quality care of the applicants that come here, whether it's a big developer or the person that has no idea what development means, right?
Right, because then you don't get into the situation where the developer's going to say, you know what, I gotta stop because I can't wait any longer.
Right.
And he doesn't have everything he needs, but he'll do it anyway.
Right.
So you'll avoid some of that because you'll be more time sensitive.
So
I agree 100%.
Okay. Yeah. If there's general consensus on that, I can either, work with the chair on making sure how we, prepare the agendas, and then John and I will do a better job of trying to prepare motions in advance of your particular meetings, so to try to expedite that process. And then with regard to affirmation of votes, I think we just do that on a case-by-case basis. Yep. And we can talk about that at each meeting as to whether, and we can incorporate that as part of our motions too, to basically suggest that this can just move forward without affirmation later on, or that this is a large enough project that we believe that the Planning Commission should affirm the motion at a subsequent meeting, something like that. Is that a general, what you're hearing about?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good. Any way we can streamline but not just the developers, for any applicant. Anyone.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. Okay.
I know.
Great.
I started mine in 2019. I broke ground in 2021. So
there you go.
I lived it.
Good. I appreciate your indulgence on that one, because I do see and get phone calls and stuff, and only been here a little bit, I can immediately see some areas that we can crunch.
So when they come in with a red face, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating on your end and the applicants.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next is a comp plan update.
Just very quickly, because I know the Celtics are on shortly. So the comp plan is moving along. We did have, most of you saw at the night that we didn't have the quorum for a planning commission. We concurrently had a comp plan community meeting. I think that went pretty well. I wished more people had shown up, but I think the smaller group sessions were kind of interesting. Is for those that were there, I was kind of amazed how on that last question, each group came up actually with the same answers.
Yeah.
You know, protect the western side of town, but we need a town center to call, you know, home, if you will. That yes, we have our village historic districts all around that people love and all that, but they're really, the sense of a true community center seems to be lacking that people want to have. And the other interesting thing is that people all identified the same spot when we were there. So the sort of the Sandy Bottom area, there's sort of a big box you can draw around, and depending on who you are, it's a bigger or smaller box. But that seems to be sort of the area that people think about, you know, when June 14th rolls around, all of a sudden when you see flags in town on flagpoles or on, you know, telephone poles, it's sort of that area that people are thinking about. You can agree or disagree with that, but that was the first thing that was noticeable to me, that there was that collective, you know, usually there's one or two that agree, but literally all 6 or 7 groups said the same thing that night, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
The consultant is working diligently. I think they're pretty much done the existing conditions aspect of the plan. We've already been in touch with the statewide planning office. They like to get stuff piecemeal rather than an entire plan to do the review. So we're going to be doing reviews with the statewide office as we put stuff out there. So it's going to be, you know, a couple major chunks at a time. We're not going to do just individual chapters. If we've got like 2 chapters, we're going to give them 2 chapters, not one and then, you know, that sort of thing. And it seems to me we've got some good collaboration going there, which hopefully will be an improvement from what happened in 2010, where the state didn't particularly care for your plan. There was clear acknowledgement of the folks that did a lot of work in the 2018 timeframe, and then COVID shut them down. So we've really tried to bridge. When the town manager and the consultant were put on board, they had no idea that there was this previous work done in the 2018 timeframe. So I worked with Sherry and Irene Drew and worked really diligently to make sure that I had all the information that had been done prior to then and got it to the consultant, which freaked them out. But they've now gotten over the freak attack to be able to get it bridged in. So nothing was lost from the group and all the effort that went before. Because what I was really nervous about was that the July or the the May session was going to turn into a gripe session of those that had worked on things so hard and that they were being ignored. So I made sure that that was not ignored. The advisory committee is going to meet in July. And then it looks like, again, there's going to be a big chunk of information going off to the state relatively soon. First, it's going to go through I want it first going through the advisory committee, because I want our plan to represent what Coventry wants as first and foremost, not what the state wants to impose on you. So the thinking was, do we want to send it off to the state first, then have it go through the advisory committee? And I was like, no, I'm from Vermont. Sorry. Most decisions should be made at the local level commensurate with their impact. I want Coventry to develop a plan that Coventry wants, and then we'll fight with the state if they want us to change it from that standpoint. But I don't think it'll be a fight, but it's a little bit more tops down here than I'm used to. So that's why I want to drive it from the local level and get the input from the local level, because then we'll be able to best defend it when we get it to the state level. I think that's about it on the comp plan. It's late, so.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Very good.
And I think I emailed you up. Didn't I email an update from the consultant? There was like a 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot. So that I forgot to mention that, but that's a good update in terms of the scope of work and what they've driven at so far.
Okay, great.
Good.
Okay, next we have public comment. Do we have anybody on Zoom? John? Anybody on Zoom would like to raise their hand for public comment? Seeing none? Yeah, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
A motion.
Motion by Mr. Ray, second.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.